The last time the press really cared about Mitt Romney was back in 2012. And think about the portrait in the mainstream media of the Republican presidential candidate. Think how widely denigrated and often mocked Mitt Romney was. I mean, he was this out-of-touch plutocrat, really rich guy with a bunch of houses, and one of them had a car elevator. He was the guy who strapped the dog to the roof of the family car for a vacation, binders full of women. I mean, he was sort of presented as a 1950s sitcom dad who happened to be really rich, who didn't care about poor people, who liked firing poor people and all of that. Now, by the way, Romney made a lot of mistakes in that campaign, so you can't totally blame his loss on the press. But I think it's fair to say that there were not a lot of huge Romney boosters in the mainstream media. Now, suddenly, Mitt Romney is getting strange new respect. It's a phrase that we use in the media business when suddenly the press wakes up to the fact that, oh, look at this guy, he's evolved and we kind of like him now. Why? Because it looks highly possible that Mitt Romney will be the next senator from Utah. Orrin Hatch, who had kind of owned that seat for 4 decades, stepping down, Romney positioned to run. And because Romney has been a fierce critic of President Trump, suddenly the media are all excited about this. Trump's worst nightmare, says an MSNBC headline. CNN, they're all covering it. Politico saying the tense and difficult relationship between Trump and Romney about to take center stage. Center stage! The guy hasn't even formally declared yet. Now, obviously, it's a pretty juicy story for this reason. Trump turned on Romney after Romney started to criticize him during the 2015 and 2016 campaign. Trump had supported Romney, given him money. He said Mitt choked like a dog. Meanwhile, Romney became very concerned about candidate Trump, said a lot of harsh things, called him a fraud and worse. And he's continued to do so this year, speaking out against President Trump, even though they had that, remember that dinner where they had frog's legs and supposedly Trump was interested in Mitt as a potential Secretary of State, except I don't really think that was happening. It was a kind of a mend the fences and maybe humiliate him a little bit moment. So since you have Romney as a nationally known figure who has been very critical of candidate and now President Donald J. Trump, the media think, well, you know, he's actually a pretty smart guy. He's actually a pretty sober, he's a statesman. And that's the way these things work. When Romney was running against Barack Obama, well, he was an object of ridicule. Now that he could be a thorn in Trump's side, many in the press who don't much like this president are going to be involved in building him up. Now, the reality may be, if indeed Romney runs and probably wins in the state of Utah, that on most things, he'll probably, as a conservative Republican, vote with the president. But he probably will also speak out more forcefully than many of his Republican colleagues. Although, you know, Washington is a go-along, get-along kind of place. He may want to mute his criticism of the president he has to work with, as opposed to when the former Massachusetts governor was just sitting out there on the sidelines, easy to take pot shots. Either way, it's a good story, but it's just so striking the way the press has kind of moved from 6 years ago, when Romney was the object of ridicule, to now kind of relishing the delicious prospect of Romney becoming Trump's detractor-in-chief.